Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're out here with Shadowfax today, and he kicked over both his water buckets like 2 minutes ago, so I'm going to have to refill those. But before I go refill those, I had made a comment in one of my videos where I was talking about whether to blanket your horse or not blanket your mini horse, and I had made an offhand comment about the winter woolies, the fuzziness that these guys get in the winter, not being triggered by heat and instead being triggered by light. So let's talk about that, because a bunch of people have been asking me, what did I mean? So let's talk about the winter woolies and how they're triggered, because we're into fall now. It's almost September, and it is actually about to become important. If you look at this guy, he's actually starting to get some of his winter woolies. It's not September yet. So let's talk about why that is, even though it's not particularly cold. You know, it was very, very hot 2 days ago. It was so hot we were sweltering. It's still not cold, but 2 days ago was sweltering. So why is he getting the winter woolies when it's still relatively hot outside? Okay, let's talk about that. Because the winter woolies are not primarily triggered by heat. So whether they grow their winter woolies or they shed their winter woolies, the heat has very little to do with it. I'm not saying it has nothing to do with it, but very, very little. The winter woolies, that growth of fur that makes them look like little baby woolly mammoths, that is actually triggered by how much light they're getting. So if you're in the middle of summer and you're getting like 14, 16 hours worth of light, the winter woolies really don't get triggered, because they're getting so much light that their bodies are saying, yeah, it's not going to get cold enough yet for us to worry about it. If you live where I live, now we're up in Canada, so we're not getting that much daylight even now. I mean, September starts in a couple of days and we're already kind of getting less less sunlight than we were even a week ago. So that's what's triggering him. Because if you live where I live, what happens is their bodies detect the whole, oh, it's going to be winter soon, I better start growing some fuzz. So it's primarily triggered by the light. So you can see that he is starting to get kind of fuzzed. See, you can see on his legs and stuff, he's getting some fuzz that he didn't have 2 weeks ago. So he will be fully winter woolied by the end of October, but he's already getting triggered now. What does this have to do with anything? Well, you can actually control, at least to some degree, how much of a coat they get and when they start shedding that coat by controlling the light. Okay, now this obviously only works usually in one direction. Okay, so it's very difficult to trigger the winter woolies to start growing, because that would mean you'd have to lock your dude up inside and give him less daylight than you're naturally getting, and that wouldn't be fun. So if you're currently getting 14 hours of daylight and you want him to grow his winter woolies, you'd have to lock him up, okay, and then keep him locked up for a few weeks to get him to start triggering his winter woolies, and you'd have to shut the lights off. Thank you, quail, for all the noise. Thank you. But you would have to do that. You would have to stick him inside and then limit his light. And that's, one, generally not something people want to do. And two, there's not a lot of point to that. Why are you triggering the winter woolies for no reason? Okay, they will be triggered in due time with that shortage of light as winter approaches. So the other direction, however, might be useful. Getting your horse to shed. So if it's springtime and your horse is having a difficult time shedding, and maybe you have a really early spring and it's a lot warmer than you expect, maybe your March, instead of being frigid, is like the heat of June, and you need to get that horse to shed his winter woolies, but he isn't yet because it's March. And the light, regardless of the heat, is not really doing anything. The light is just the light in March. So what you can do, thank you, quail. You can thank your quail for making all the noise in the world. I don't know why we're all crowing right now. I don't have any snacks and you hate me anyway. They're being so annoying. And there's a duck making noise. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. Anyway, so what you can do if you want your horse to start shedding out because it is way warmer than it normally is, and you desperately want your little guy to start dropping those winter woolies, you can extend his day. So I normally would do it either at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. I don't typically do both, but you can put lights on a timer. Maybe you're going to switch. Maybe your sun doesn't come up till 8 a.m. And that's normal for us starting in about September. So maybe your sun doesn't come up until 8 a.m. And so you would set your lights on a timer to come on at 6 a.m. However, this is only going to work if you leave him locked up till the actual sun's in the sky. Excuse me. So you can trigger that early, trigger the shed early if you need to by extending how much light he has. So leave him locked up a little bit in the morning, expose him to light early, then let him out when the sun comes up. And then maybe lock him up an hour early in the evening into a lighted barn again, and then shut the lights off. Do not leave the lights on 24/7. Okay? That's not going to help. I mean, it's not that they can't be under lights 24/7. That's not the issue. The issue is it's irrelevant. Okay, once you hit around the 16 hours of daylight, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 20 hours of daylight or 16. Their shedding has already been triggered. Okay, so just you don't have to leave. You don't have to leave the lights on all night. Okay, so I'm looking around a lot at these dang quail. Be quiet. This isn't about you. I didn't bring you anything. Fine. Anyway, so you don't need to put them under lights for 24 hours. That doesn't make any sense. It's not going to actually trigger the shedding. You can just extend their light until they have between 14 and 16 hours of light. Remember to lock them up, because if they are exposed to the, hi buddy, if they are exposed to the darkness instead, so if they're going outside in the dark instead of staying in the lighted barn, it's not going to get triggered. So just close your barn, turn the lights on, wait till the sun comes up, let them out. You're backing up into your bucket again. Don't back into your bucket, you bum. I have to already refill the buckets again. Again, I have to do it. Again, because you're such a bum. Anyway, that is what I meant when I said changing the temperature, leaving a blanket on to make him hot doesn't really make him shed. You need to change the light exposure. So that's what I meant in that video where I was saying don't even bother putting a blanket on to make him hot. It's not fair, it's not nice, and it doesn't work as well. Temperature has a little bit to do with it, but it's primarily the light exposure your mini horse has. So if you do want to trigger that shed early, get them under lights for a couple more hours a day, and you will be amazed at how quickly they start shedding. Do not bite my hand. No biting. No biting. He likes to bite. Not in a mean way. He's very nice. Anyway, that's what I meant when I said that. People have asked for clarification, so there's your clarification. Hope that made sense. Let me know if it didn't. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. I'm off to fill water buckets again. We'll see you tomorrow.